Evening, everyone. So I'm going to do a quick Q&A, as I said in my announcement this morning. I've got 4 questions that were posted to the forum, plus one from the chat. I'm going to do it through in one take, so excuse me if I mumble or stumble through everything. I just want to get this nicely done and sorted with. All right, so first question. This one came in through email, actually, and I wanted to answer it in the Q&A because it actually asks a lot of the questions that the class has been asking. So it's quite a big one. It goes, do we look at this as a social issue and solve it as a consultant, or are we a business trying to solve this issue, but our aim is to make a profit, or we need financial analysis, not understanding the profit part of the triple bottom line, and what is our stance when which is causing complications in defining our competitors and creating a SWOT analysis. So lots of questions there. I'm going to start off with the first part of the question. Do we look at this as a social issue and solve it as a consultant, or are we a business trying to solve this issue, but our aim is to make a profit? Firstly, in terms of the consulting part, I hope you all remember the document that I put up, which is BCG and the WWF looking at this. It's highly important reading for this. Secondly, so what I'd like you to do, if you haven't done so already, is to look at it through a number of lenses. So you're looking at it as the government, maybe as a business, maybe a business that's specifically impacted by it, maybe some, people like laundries and car washers might be significantly impacted by an issue like this. And then the third is maybe look at it at an individual level. So government, business, and individual. And also remember that these can interact. So maybe the Western Cape government needs to consider what this impact is on businesses and sort of how businesses might retreat from the Western Cape if the environment isn't right for it. And it also might be an issue for businesses to consider because the Western Cape might start putting laws or bylaws or stuff, just sort of begin adjusting for this problem. So you can consider it from those core 3 angles and the interaction between them. Just remember, it is an environmental issue, and I mean that in both ways. It's in the physical environment, as in it's a drought, but also in the business environment. So in the same way that some business environments include high levels of competition or low levels of consumer interest or that sort of thing, this isn't something that may impact them, impact a business or impact the government or impact individuals. So consider it like that. Consider it almost a challenge that has come in that we need to strategize around. It's almost put us in a weaker position, and we need to consider ways and means to get us into a stronger position. Secondly, will we need to do a financial analysis? So as always, finance is an important part of a general strategy. I mean, it's you can't do things in isolation without it. But at the same time, we're not going to expect you to do discounted cash flows and sort of massive impact evaluation, financial impact evaluation, and stuff like that. What I'd like you to instead do is consider the financial implications of each of your solutions for whatever it might be. So I'm going to use MZ's laundry business because you all know it well, but if your solution for MZ is to buy 20 high performance, low water, washing machines, you're going to have to consider that as opposed to other solutions such as, maybe doubling down on loads or whatever it might be. So, I mean, that's probably not the best idea, but you know what I mean. So basically, the idea is consider the finances and consider the cost of certain things. So if you're doing it for the Western Cape government, maybe you need to consider the cost of filtration plants or whatever it might be. If it's for individuals, maybe they need to start considering the costs around their water. So it doesn't need to be a DCF or massive profit statements, but you do need to consider it in whatever you do. Third, and what are our stances, which is causing complications in defining our competitors and creating a SWOT analysis. So what I've seen here as a problem, and this has been pervasive with a number of students that have come to me, is they're trying to apply these tools that we've taught very directly into the problem, almost like trying to fit a square peg into a circle hole. Now, what I need you to do is take a step back and realize what the purpose of these tools are. So we've taught you these bunch of tools and these ideas and this different way of thinking, but I don't ever want you to get trapped in that thinking. So take a step back and say, what is the point of those tools? The point of those tools, such as defining competitors and creating a SWOT analysis, etc., is to unpack all the issues around it. So, for example, what you might want to do is take it from different lenses, as I said previously, but also realize that you can apply them in different ways. So, for example, with a SWOT analysis, maybe you apply SWOT to various solutions. So, applying SWOT to Western Cape marketing campaign around water. So, maybe they spend, a couple of million rand on this massive marketing campaign, which I think they have been doing, but you can check up on that. Or even if they're doing a massive conference, which is what I sent in the announcement, they've got to weigh up the pros and cons essentially of that. So a SWOT for the conference might be strengths, brings together major players, stimulates conversation, might find solutions. Weaknesses might be that it's very short. There may not be enough sharing of ideas, instead it'll just be some people speaking. Opportunities are to create new interconnectedness, find partners to partner with, and threats are that no one attends, basically. So remember to apply your tools intelligently. Don't just slap them on. This isn't accounting, and I say that as having been in accounting, is that you see a problem and you're like, okay, that is this issue, and I'm going to slap the standard straight in there. Take a step back and realize what you're doing. So, yeah, last note on that is just to make sure that you're actually thinking about it instead of just trying to apply the tools at random. And lastly, you can also find other tools. So remember at one point we asked you to create a strategy tools wiki. There are about 180 odd tools, I think, in there. So go and fish some of those out. As Aaron said, if you're using a SWOT or something that we've taught regularly in the course, you don't have to explain it. If you find something else that hasn't been used frequently in the course, give a little bit of a one-liner or a two-liner on what the tool is and what its purpose is, and then apply it. There are tools for analyzing government issues that you might want to look up. But again, the tool is not the thing that we'll be examining. It's your thinking around it. Cool. I'm going to move on from there. A question on the guest lectures. For the guest lectures, will we have to do in-depth analyses on them and their market, like SWOT, Porters, etc.? Cheapest people love SWOT. Or will we just need to know what they are doing now? This is because 2016 past paper asked us to write a strategy for a guest lecture. I was wondering the level of depth that would be expected. So, first of all, just knowing what they're doing now is not our objective. The reason we allow you to bring all of your notes in for all of these parts is that it's not a memorizing test. We don't want to see how much you can shove into your brain and then regurgitate onto the page. So don't repeat back to us what they said. What instead I'd like you to do is take the knowledge that you've gathered, take the thinking that you've gathered, and thinking of applying them. So some of the examples that I could use of this is think about alternative strategies. If you're looking at the clothing bank, maybe they need to think about alternative strategies, and you can think up some for them, for example, or maybe contrast them. If you contrast, let me think. If you contrast Luvuyo Rani and if you contrast them to the clothing to Tracy Chambers, they're both very, very big social entrepreneurs, but they operate very differently. So maybe using some of the strategies that Luvuyo does, which include franchising, to the clothing bank. And the clothing bank doesn't do franchising, they manage everything internally. So maybe, for example, you could apply some of Luvuyo's strategies to the clothing bank. And then another thing is to distill your own ideas from them. So, for example, draw a number of ideas from a variety of sources. One of them, let me think. Yeah, so what you can basically do is if you've learned a lesson from one of the entrepreneurs, maybe one of my favorites from Melvin was the idea of always starting, sort of strategizing to aim at the people at the top of an organization, and then when they sort of pass you on to lower levels of an organization, then you're more likely to get in. And that might be something that you might have also learned from Tracy, because she was a top level executive. And what she was able to do is when she started, she was someone at the top and was able to bring her knowledge and her resources in. So maybe you could synthesize that into a lesson yourself. Um, so I'm going to quickly use the Jenga case for each of those. What I said is alternative strategies, contrasting strategies, and distilling your own ideas. So with the Jenga case, my thinking would be, if I got given a question like, give Jenga advice for the future based on the other guest lectures, I'd say something like, learning from Luvuyarani, part of what he has done that's made him so successful is being present in the townships. Where his biggest markets are. Even though he's made huge amounts of money, he still lives in Khayelitsha. So maybe a bit of advice to Jonga would be to base their operations in Khayelitsha or in Philippi. There's a really good place in Philippi Village, instead of basing the operations at UCT and being removed from the audience. So that's the sort of things that you can do. Please don't just repeat back to us what they said. You might get it spot on, but you'll get a 50, maybe mid 60 tops. Synthesize it and apply your thinking from each of them. Next question. With respect to the Blue Ocean Canvas, can this analysis only be done when comparing organizations in a competitive market? Because I'm struggling a bit to make a canvas to do with the water crisis. Can I make a canvas for the farmers or the government? I'm struggling with the competitive factors. Okay, this is another classic case of taking a tool and just trying to shove it where, shove a square peg in a round hole. So don't force it like this, and take a step back again and realize what you're doing with this. So obviously this is not a competitive thing in the traditional sense that you're competing with other governments, or you're competing within businesses, or whatever it might be. Maybe some businesses are competing for resources, but essentially it's a shared resource. So that's difficult to apply it to. A way that I would apply the Blue Ocean Canvas instead is to do something like contrast different policies. So what I would do is something like outline 3 policies, maybe, let me think, piping water from the Highveld, building salination plants, and let me think, and a marketing campaign, for example. And you contrast those 3 and you're like, okay, cool. Let's put them on each of the factors that we're making a decision on. So the first factor is time or length. The first 2 options of building are both long-term or high amount of time, whereas the marketing campaign can be implemented tomorrow, so that's low. Then another consideration or another factor is cost. The first 2 are high, the second one is low. The third one is low. And you can compare it along the different things. So you can almost set up a strategy canvas or Blue Ocean canvas comparing the different things, and then maybe plug your own strategy within that. So if you have a combined strategy or analysis for a business, if you're an analysis for an individual, take the different policies and plot them out. It's a good way of visualizing. So the whole Blue Ocean canvas, the whole point of it is not just to draw colorful lines. It's not an art class. It's instead a visual tool for seeing how different strategies play out. So you'll see that, for example, the marketing strategy is completely different to the other ones, and might be something to just plug the hole while we put in place the other ones, or whatever it might be. So don't try and shove the Blue Ocean canvas just because you want to use it. Rather apply the thinking behind it. So every single time, remember the objective of using the tools. If you're going to start applying a tool just for the sake of applying it, you're going to really struggle to do well. Instead, if you take a step back and say to us, look, I'm going to do this analysis, this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to apply this tool in a different way, that's far more likely to do you well. Good. This was a question in the chat room. If possible, could you please explain to me how the strategy canvas works? I'm assuming you're meaning the Blue Ocean strategy canvas. It might be relating to the previous question I answered, so hopefully that answered you. Otherwise, pop back to the module, the Blue Ocean strategy canvas module. There's another strategy canvas, which is the 1-page strategy canvas, but I'm pretty sure we only cover that next semester, so you don't need to worry about that for now. So I think the Blue Ocean one is always difficult to apply, because it always depends on your context. But keep in mind every time, you're not doing it just to draw things, you're doing it for your thinking. So if you get asked to draw a blue ocean canvas, don't just draw it with your fancy crayons and everything or your highlighters. Sit and think about what you're doing and then justify it. So a question that says draw a blue ocean strategy canvas for a laundry business in the Western Cape. Don't just draw the picture. Sit there and discuss it. Sit there and discuss the elements you're competing against each other. Sit there and discuss the different components of it, and sort of how you're going to deal with each component or whatever it might be. All right. Hold on. Okay, well, whatever. Good luck, guys. I won't be available at all on Tuesday. I'm flying up to Joburg for the R&B exam, but I'm sure you guys are going to do great. If you have any questions, I think it's best to actually discuss them amongst yourselves. Find a classmate. What I did the day before my strat exam is I went to a coffee shop with a friend. I got a pot of tea and we sat and we chatted over the issue. You can do it at home, you can do it on campus. Just sit and discuss it, bounce ideas off each other, and see how other people are applying it to it. This exam is really, really an interesting one to let yourself out there and create new and exciting ideas. And I know you guys are going to be great at it. You guys have had a phenomenal semester, and I really back you all. Otherwise, the course review is still open, and then on Thursday morning, I'll announce the sign-up process for the Mazars project. Good luck for the exam and have a wonderful vac. Cheers.